Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast and welcome to the third episode. Have you ever thought about how cool directors are? Because I have been. And let me just tell you, their job is actually really interesting. So, today I'm going to be discussing specifically Jon Favreau and how he stands out as a director and why he's good at his job. Feel free to subscribe or comment other directors you'd like to see me do these presentations on, and enjoy the episode. Jon Favreau. He's awesome. He's done way too many things in the movie industry, though. Not only has he directed, but he's also acted, produced, and written. Absolutely wild. Nothing short of a mad lad. His first director's credit is Bad Cop, Bad Cop from 1998, but he's been acting since 1992 in Folks. His full name is very fun to say. Jonathan Colia Favreau. He's an only child, and because his mother was Russian Jewish, he's technically Jewish. Because being a Jew comes from your mother. He's also very much Jewish because he had a bar mitzvah. He dropped out of Hebrew school to pursue acting, which you'll 100% agree with is the right choice if you've ever been to Hebrew school or Jewish Sunday school. He went to Queens for university, dropped out of Queens, went back to Queens a year later, then dropped out a final time with only a few credits to go. He's been doing director projects ever since he did a director project, which was in '98 if you recall. In the 23 years it's been, he's directed 26 more titles, ranging from blockbuster cinema marvels to Disney Plus TV shows to just plain old TV movies. He even did an episode of The Office, and a very excellent and heartwarming one at that. He's also the man responsible for one of Disney's most successful shows, The Mandalorian, but since he was a producer on that and not a director, I won't be talking about it. If you're on the hunt for Favreau movies, you're most likely to find him walking the wire between action, comedy, and wholesome. So, let's talk a little bit about his style. He does a lot of fast-paced action when there is action. There's always superb comedy, both conversational, observational, and jokes. He does touching, emotional, and or wholesome scenes that really never become really over the top. They never cross a line, but they hit the spot emotionally. And characters of his always have quirks, issues, and faults. When he was 12, his mother passed, and at the time he was big into movies to do with sadness and loneliness that would end with the sort of idea that there's a bigger path, a bigger plan, and that everything would be okay. This is an underlying theme in his movies, or an overlying theme, such as The Lion King. So, our first movie we're going to look at is Elf, a movie we must have all seen. In summary, this is a movie about an elf who's quite obviously not an elf, but he ends up in New York City, still believing that that's what he's meant to be. He never really fit in both the Big Apple and in the North Pole, but by the end of the movie, he's found his happy place, and he's found his real biological family. But not only that, he's found his emotional family, the family he's meant to be with. So to recap, he was lost and lonely, went through a plot, and wound up happy and loved in a way that looked and felt meant to be, and that really is Jon Favreau's MO, his modus operandi. Here is a clip from the movie, that's the poster, that really does sort of show off that initial moment of isolation, sadness, loneliness, all those sort of negative feelings. So, within that short little video, we can clearly see that Buddy thought he was just a little different from all the other elves. But overhearing that it's human, not only does that make a lot of sense to him, but he feels a lot more, infinitely more, separated and distant from the people he's surrounded by, and from the society he grew up in. So, you know who else didn't really fit into the job he liked, and then finally snapped and took a personal journey that was funny, touching, and heartfelt? Chef Carl Casper from Chef in 2014. Chef is a culinary and a film masterpiece. If you haven't seen it, please do. Do yourself that favor. The short summary is that Carl Casper is a cook at a prestigious restaurant, and when a critic comes to critique the place and its food, he decides that he wants to shake it up and not serve the same thing they've been doing for years. He snaps at the critic, goes viral on Twitter, and then he gets fired. A little bit of Robert Downey Jr. action later, with compliments from Sofia Vergara, and he's off on a road trip from one end of the country to another in a food truck with his best friend and his son. The movie carries some of Favreau's classic themes. He did also write it and star in it, But in this specific plot, the loneliness and separation thing isn't necessarily that. It's just a feeling of not liking what you're doing. A feeling of not necessarily fitting in. Which overall does make the movie a really good example, because he's not doing the same thing over and over again, but it is still very much in his style. So let's take a look at this clip. That's the poster. Again, I want you to notice. This is the second poster with just a single character to really sort of show off that it's them that the movie is about. So let's look at this clip, and I'll explain how it is still very much Favreau style. So what you just watched is, in the movie, his son decided that he was going to film 1 second of the trip a day, and in the end, that's what it came out to be. That little video. So that really shows off that the climax of the movie, I do believe that to be the climax of the movie. It doesn't have to be some big, epic, I'm gonna punch you, I'm gonna kill you, you're going down. It just has to be a conclusion that really wraps up the whole story in a nice knot, makes you feel happy, makes you feel satisfied, makes you feel like you spent that money you spent on that movie ticket, or the money you paid to get Netflix, just makes it worth it. And again, if you look at all these descriptions, very much Favreau's influence. He is not Iron Man, but he directed it. That's right, our third movie that we're looking at is the original Iron Man. So, the summary of this movie is that you have this really sort of annoying, cocky, womanizing CEO who gets kidnapped, he gets traumatized, and more. He ends up building this big Iron Man suit, and then he decides to leave his whole arms dealing and weapons building world behind in search of something new, something greener, and something more peaceful. He goes on an exceedingly dope journey with lots of cool technology and characters, and he ends up in a big boss fight. Quite literally, he actually did fight his boss. And once that's all over, he ends up loved. He ends up being taken care of. You can see that things are better for him. And I want to point out how bad they were from before Iron Man, when he was just Tony Stark, head of Stark Industries, with this clip. So specifically in that clip, I really wanted to show off the portrayal of Tony Stark. Again, this is an adaptation, but just Favreau's hand in it really does. It plays a huge role. So he's definitely, again, flawed, cocky, but as I inferred from the drinking and the deadpan humor, he really didn't have his heart in his work. You can see that this is what he feels like he's supposed to do, but it just doesn't feel right. And again, you can see that in Chef as well. You can sort of see that a little bit in Elf, not really. But I just really wanted to showcase the loneliness, the isolation, the negative aspect of a character in Favreau's classic. The final movie I wanted to check out is the Lion King remake. Yet again, we have older Simba and younger Simba, same single character poster portrayal. So, in summary, if you somehow haven't seen this or it's original, you have Simba. He's a little Lion King. He's a little Lion Prince. He loves his dad. We find out it's a musical. And then Simba's dad gets murdered by his uncle. And then his uncle gaslights him. So he's sort of exiled, banished. He runs away. He grows up. He does a lot more singing, some great songs. And then he returns and he helps his kingdom and he saves the day. And it's a great time. In this clip, I want to show you the attention to detail that you can bring out in a live action movie. Because again, the original is animated. And in this new version, all the characters have so much more life. They really are like 3D. And even though there is no acting, because we got lions, hyenas, and birds, it's not necessarily humans and more humans. It's really a Favreau movie, even if it is an adaptation. So let's take a look. So, in that clip, you have two things I really wanted to draw attention to. You have the attention to detail on the mouse, on the grass. You can't shoot that kind of shot in an animation. No one wants to look at, pixelated grass just kind of going back and forth, a tiny mouse just kind of being like, mouse things. You can do that Scar monologue, but I'm gonna touch on that in one more second. It did go on for a hot sec. Like, that tracking of the mouse just kind of having his day really did go on. No one would be interested in that as an animation, but in the live action version, it's sort of world building. And then Scar goes on this whole monologue about how life isn't fair, about how he's been mistreated, he's been wronged. I don't necessarily remember that from the original. Feel free to correct me. It's been a minute since I watched it. But Favreau's adaptation brings Scar to life, brings the hyena leader lady to life. Honestly, if you were to sit down and write like a couple paragraphs in the comments, I could probably be persuaded to see the whole movie from Scar's side, from the villain side. It's so great. The building of all the characters is truly wonderful. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching to the end. It means a lot when you guys do that. You are absolutely welcome to comment other directors you want me to do this type of podcast for, because I really loved making it. Other than that, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys around. Welcome to the Knowledge Puddle.